Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start my presentation with a warning. As you can tell by now, I have an accent, and as you are going to suffer throughout the presentation, I have the tendency to speak very fast. So I'm going to try to remind myself to go slowly. I have divided my presentation into three parts. In the first one, I would like to tell you about my mother, if you don't mind, the influence that she had in me, and also about some of the experiences that I witnessed when I was growing up in Spain. The second part, I would like to tell you about our ministry at the Catholic cemeteries. And in the third and final part, I would like to tell you about what evangelization means personally to me. This picture that I am displaying right now, that's the central monument that sits in the Resurrectionist Sisters lot in Calvary Cemetery. And the reason why I'm displaying that picture is because it represents a loving and welcoming Sacred Heart of Jesus, with open arms, embracing everyone. And that's the approach that we try to have at the Catholic cemeteries. I think all of us are mostly the result of two things: our past experiences and our expectations for the future. So I would like to tell you some of my past experiences. I was born and grew up in Spain in a middle-class family where my mother was the oil that kept the family running smoothly. I think I have no doubt in my mind that she's been the biggest and most important influence in my life, but I can say also probably in the life of my brother and my father. My mom was the oldest of 7 children. I think she was about 1 year old there. 4 girls and 3 boys. When she was 8 years old, her mother took her out of school to help her raise the rest of the children. She was the only child in the family that was not given the opportunity to study or go to college, but that's the way it was back then. My mom was very involved in the life of her parish. For many years, she sang in the choir, and also she helped every year with the annual appeal to raise funds to support the missionary work of the Catholic Church in Africa. I do not recall a single time when she said something about anyone. But I recall one time when I was with her, I think I was either 9 or 10 years old. I don't quite remember where we were, but we were somewhere. And there was a gentleman there who was intoxicated and bothering my mother. And I looked at her and said something bad about this person. And she looked at me and said, "Do you love your father?" I said, "Yes." She said, "That gentleman is someone's father. Would you like to hear somebody to say about your father what you just said about the man?" I just had no answer. I just looked down in shame, but I will never forget that moment. That's my mom on the right, and her sister, my aunt, Maruja, the day of the First Communion. That's my aunt Maruja, the same girl that you saw in the picture before with my mom. That's how she lived for 30 years of her life. She lived with us, and my mom took care of her, and that is the result of a degenerative disease that basically takes over your body, takes away your ability to move, to walk, to see, to use your hands, basically to function as a person. My mom did everything for her for the last 30 years of her life, and I mean everything, because she couldn't even scratch her head if she had an itch. 5 of those 30 years, she also took care of her father, my grandfather, who suffered from dementia. I don't know how, but she managed to be a wonderful mother and wife while she was doing all of those things. And also, she was always smiling, happy, and supportive of everyone around her. These are 2 examples of who my mom was, and the kind of example that she set for my brother and myself. I think that everyone that has experienced the loss of a loved one has similar stories to share. The pain of the loss at sometimes can feel overwhelming. Our mission and ministry at the Catholic cemeteries is to show God's love to everyone that walks through our doors, with the hope that they will find peace and comfort. I would like to read the mission statement of the Catholic cemetery, if you don't mind. The services of the Catholic cemeteries are a ministry of the Archdiocese of Louisville. We offer the right of burial to the Catholic community and all of God's people. We commit ourselves to the gospel and Catholic tradition. We affirm the sacredness of human life and profess the resurrection of the body and life everlasting. There are two events in life that bring together people of different faith backgrounds or no faith backgrounds. Those are weddings and funerals. Our ministry allows us to reach and get in touch with practicing and non-practicing Catholics, Christians of all denominations, non-Christian, and people of no faith at all. We reach to families in one of the most vulnerable times in their lives. And the way we give witness of God's love is by showing that we treat every person and every family with compassion, by showing every person and by showing that every person and every life is important to us, and by showing that everyone has dignity. We have identified two areas in our ministry that require special attention. One of them is the burial of people with no resources or limited resources, and the other one is the burial of babies. The Catholic cemeteries do not deny burial to anyone because of the lack of funds. Everyone is somebody's father, somebody's mother, or somebody's child. Most importantly, everyone is God's child and has dignity. At the Catholic cemeteries, we strive to maximize the space that we have available so that we can minister to as many families as possible. And because of that, we have a very generous return policy where families can return graves for a refund, and in that case, they get 25% of the current price or 100% of what they originally paid, whichever is higher. But they also can return those graves as a donation for a needy person. And in that case, they need a statement from us showing the current value of what they're returning so that they can deduct it in their taxes. And because of these returns, we can better assist these families in need. Another area that requires special attention from us is the burial of babies. And this is Rachel. That's a monument that sits in the Holy Innocent section in Calvary Cemetery. Burying a child is one of the most difficult things that anybody has to face in a lifetime. When a child dies, the order of nature is reversed. We all expect our parents to go before us, but we don't expect a child to go before us. And this makes these situations especially hard to accept by people. Many of the couples that experience the loss of a child are young in age, sometimes emotionally immature. Many times they don't have emotional support from their families. And in most cases, they have very limited resources or no resources at all. The Holy Innocent section of Calvary Cemetery was laid out many years ago just to bury all babies. Within that section, we have two areas, what we call the marked and the unmarked areas. The mark is for all babies, and the mark is restricted for stillborn babies free of cost or free of charge. When a child is lost in the first 12 weeks of the pregnancy, those remains can be treated as medical waste by the hospitals. Because of our belief in the dignity of the person, many years ago, the Catholic cemeteries offered hospitals the opportunity to bring those remains to us so that they could be buried in the unmarked section free of charge to the families or the hospital. Hospitals bring those remains to the office, each one in an individual wooden container, and our field workers take them to the unmarked section and bury them in a private service. During my years as director of the cemeteries, I have noticed that losing a child is especially hard for women. Sometimes time is not enough to heal from a loss like that. I have had women in my office crying for babies that they lost 15 or 20 years before. And they go there with the hope that we can actually take them to the sad location where the baby is buried, but those babies were buried in the marked section, so we can take them out and show them the general area, but not desacrate. Because of that, because of those situations, we understand the importance of this part of our ministry, the potential to do good for many people. In 2010, we developed In God's Hand Garden, which offers families the opportunity to memorialize a beloved child. It also offers a special place for quiet reflection and prayer. Over 1,500 granite pavers surround the central feature, and they are available for families for inscription. Each paver allows for 4 lines: the name of the baby, the date of birth, the date of death, and then the last line is an inscription of the family's choice. In addition, on the last Wednesday of each month, Deacon Bob Markert presides over a prayer service to remember all children who have died. The names of every child that has been buried that month in the cemetery or any Catholic cemeteries is mentioned at the service. And other names can be added to the list, whether the baby was buried in a different cemetery or in a prayer month at the request of the families. This service is open for anyone who wishes to attend. I have seen firsthand the potential and the influence that this space, by the way, this is a picture of the dedication, Archbishop Kurtz and Father Tony Smith. I think I have another one there. I have seen firsthand the impact that this space and this service can have in the life of these families. I want to share with you my personal view of evangelization. When you feel God's love burning in your heart, you want to share it. It's like a child with a soccer ball that wants to go outside and play with friends. When you feel that burn, you are transformed, and you can transform others around you. And then great things happen. That is my mom in the center, a few months before she died, surrounded by a happy and close family. We are entrusted by families with the final resting place of their loved ones. This is an email that we got about 3 weeks ago. I don't know if anybody can read, but I'll read it for you. You and your staff have been so wonderful. Another positive reason to use the Catholic cemeteries for a final resting place. I will tell everyone of your kindness and perpetual care for loved ones. Best regards. Often, I remind myself to never underestimate the impact and the influence that my actions and my words can have in the life of another person. Mother Teresa once said, if you cannot feed 100 people, feed just one. I do remind myself often of that quote, that what it means to us. We reach and minister to families, one family at a time. Grief is part of life, but there are many other parts to life. There's love, surprise, hope, trust, just to name a few. In closing my presentation, I think it's more fitting calling it Life Moment of Encounter. Thank you, everyone.